Richard Carpenter was sitting next to me at the table, and it was right after Karen's death. And I said, Richard, why? And he said, Connie, she just had no self-esteem. She just didn't like herself. I said, I just only wish I could have spoken to her. I just wish I would have been able to speak with her. I would have, believed me. She was embarrassed about her looks. I said, her looks, I said, I could have taken her in 3 days. She would have looked like a movie star. I said, I just think that it was pathetic. And we were talking that night, and I said, the years when I couldn't sing, there were only 2 singers I ever listened to. And the only singers I ever listened to, because the music was out of my life, because I felt that they were doing the kinds of songs that I would love to be doing if I could be able to sing. And that was Karen and Barry Manilow. And I told him that. And so he said, you know what my favorite record of yours, album of yours is? He said, I have 2 of them. He said, one I play all the time. He said, and then one is in mint condition. It's never been opened, and that's in the summer of his years. I said, you, Richard, because he has an incredible knowledge of music, I said, I could expect that from you, yeah.
Karen had a wonderful voice, wonderful voice.
What a tragedy.
I was asking if there was anything that you remember about Blue Winter. It was yet another winter song, among other things.
Well, that was a tremendous hit for me, especially in the Latin American countries. It was #1 in every Latin American country. Called Invierno Triste, blue, sad winter.
Did you record it in another language?
I recorded it in 6 languages. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What were they?
I recorded every single in 6 languages.
Oh, you did?
From Everybody Somebody's Fool on, every single record was recorded in 6 languages. Not album things, but singles. In English and Spanish, Italian, French, German, and Japanese. Now, in Japan, my records, I've never had an American hit. It's always been Japanese. I've never had an American hit in Germany. It's always German product there. And the Japanese loved anything American, but the Germans were very nationalistic, and so I recorded specifically. After Everybody Somebody's Fool was the biggest song on the European continent for the year, it was such a tremendous event for Deutsche Grammophon, which is now Polydor, that to celebrate the winning of the Golden Lion Award from Radio Luxembourg as the #1 record and artist of the continent for the year, and that was the first time it was ever won by ever since, ever prior to it or since, by a non-European. They rented the entire ship, the United States, and they invited every single member of the press and disc jockeys from all over Europe on that trip.
Did you have people whose job it was to just translate each of your recordings into these other languages?
Well, Spanish I spoke, Italian I spoke.
So you were able to do that yourself?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I always had a tutor there, because sometimes there were little nuances, or there were some words that would make it more hip in Italian. So I would always have a tutor there. But when I recorded my first big hits, Mama, Jealous of You, I couldn't speak a word of Italian. And when my father urged me to go to Italy because they were keeping the plants open 24 hours a day pressing Jealous of You, which is the first hit I had there, my father said, you got to go to Italy. I said, why? So I could meet more of the Gavons like I meet in the old neighborhood where we lived. I'm going to meet more of them. He said, stupid. You don't know anything. And he said, go to Italy. They're pressing their record. Well, when I stepped off the plane in Italy, I felt I had been away from home my whole life, and I was coming home. I just come home. I was supposed to be there for 10 days. I canceled the Copa. I canceled Vegas. I put in a deposit on a villa on the Appian Way. And my manager, his wife, my mother and father came home and had to drag me home. I just fell in love with that country.
Your next recording was a remake of Eddie Howard's very popular Be Anything. Were you familiar with his version?
Yes, I was.
Because you did it very similar to his.
Right. I did that with Alan Wilbur. We did the same session, Be Anything and Nevertheless, and Everything I Have Is Yours. We did that.
Now, my guess is that you probably like that song, right or wrong?
Very much.
You did? Okay, good.
Yeah, I do.
All right. That seems like one of those songs that you would have liked, but you probably didn't like the next one, which was the title of the movie, Looking for Love.
I don't even know what it sounds like. I don't know what it sounds like. I hated every song in the picture. I hated it. But the worst of them all was the last one. When I went to Bob O'Brien, who was president of MGM, I said, Bob, you and I are good friends. I said, please, don't hold me to this last movie, because my movies made tremendous money, especially in a foreign country. In the United States, no, not after where the boys are, but in the foreign country. And I said, please, don't make me make another movie. He said, Connie, this movie, he said, you got to do. It's a remake of a Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney, a movie called Girl Crazy. I said, I know Girl Crazy. I said, my God, it's a Gershwin score. Embraceable You, and I've Got Rhythm, and okay, great. So that was the first thing I was excited about movies. But I was on tour. I didn't have any chance to sit down with the producer or anybody else. The first production meeting we had was a joke and a half. First of all, the script was entirely different. And the little thing like the title was entirely different. It was another stupid title. So when I was listening to the group of people that they had scheduled to appear in this movie, I'd seen a Judy Garland movie. I wanted to do that. She was my idol. And they said, well, we're having Herman Termit's in the picture, and Sam the Man and the Pharaohs, Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. And we're having whatever else they were having. I said, well, that's really nice. So I said, well, there's a couple of people. And Liberace. Look at this potpourri of the town.
Was Hank Williams Jr. in that or not?
No.
Okay.
No, Hank wasn't smart enough to stay national for that.
I know he was kicking around MGM in '64.
Right. Well, I recorded an album with Hank.
Right.
But at any rate, he was lucky enough not to appear in it. And so I said, Harve Presnell. They said, Harve Presnell, it just came off 2 hot movies. Just finished The Unsinkable Molly Brown with Debbie Reynolds. And I said, look, you want to put him in my movie? It's better than being on the FBI Witness Protection Program. Nobody ever hear of him again.
That guarantees anonymity from then on, huh?
And it happened. It was the truth.
Oh, God.
So I said, this is a horrible script. I was furious because I had put aside those 8, 9, 10 weeks, whatever it was, during the summer to do it. And I had no bookings because I put it aside. And when I saw, because I didn't take the time and interest to do it, I would have demanded that it be called Girl Crazy. I would have made it as close as possible to the original movie. But when I had, this was like a late production meeting where all these people had been hired. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, then there's one other actor you're going to put in this movie. And they said, who? I said, Pepper Davis and Tony Reese. They said, who? I said, they're with me at the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas right now. I said, they're going to be with me in the movie. If you can put this group of people together, I said, then I want Pepper Davis and Tony Reese. They do a great fight scene. So they were in it, too.
And they owe their anonymity to you. Now, one thing that we haven't mentioned, even though we're chugging along through time here, is that beginning in early '64, you and virtually every other major American act suddenly found themselves out of the top 40 and into numbers like 40 through 80, and that was primarily, I think, because of the British invasion. And totally right. Every American act was struggling then.
So how did I feel? I cried a lot, like everybody else.
Sure. How did you feel then?
Cried a lot, like everybody else. But I had felt, in a certain respect, that for so many years, American artists had made it in Britain, and no British artist had made it in the U.S.
Yeah,
and I felt turned out with fair play what they're trying to do. And they had come up with a new sound, and I felt that was right. And Petula Clark was one of my favorites. I went to Britain, and I recorded with her producer a song called Roundabout.
And a good song.
Right, but it wasn't a big hit. But the thing is that it just was... Actually, I should have stayed in Britain. And what I did during that period of time was to go to Britain and record some great songs that became big hits, like you've never heard of. One was called My Child, which was written by Don Black, who wrote Born Free, and If I Never Sing Another Song, great songs. He's written so many songs I can't even remember them. But he wrote one of the best songs I've ever recorded, and it was called My Child, which was never released in the States, and it became a big hit there.
Was it on an LP here?
No.
Not at all, huh?
But it should. It's a gorgeous song.